Alright, the stream is starting, and I'm doing the traditional opening stream vamp. I am alone for the first time in many moons. No companion streamer today, but we will have somebody again next week, and so forth. Alright, I'm getting the link out there. I'll start the speed draw real quick. Looks like we've already got probably all of the people we're going to expect for today. 2 plus 4 times 5, Vale and Sigma, or Greg, all here. And yeah, we've got this nice building art as depicted by Victoria for 6.1 here, or Vic. And Vic and Em will not be joining us today. They are, unfortunately for us, indisposed, but they're at a zoo, so that's pretty cool. Zoos are pretty dope. I mean, I obviously understand there are some negative things about zoos, but what are you gonna do? I'd like to remind us all of the audience participation question for this week. Vic's question was, what do you think of the tone of 6.1? Obviously, having some opinions herself. And then I think the themes for these two chapters, there's a lot of stuff about the cops and robbers in 6.1, Tattletale's idea of how the world works. And then there is a lot of sort of compartmentalization in really obvious ways in 6.2, and even in 6.1, I'd say in more subtle ways, because she's able to sort of mentally justify her actions, like fighting these innocent people. And there are obviously extenuating circumstances, but she is definitely just beating up regulars. 2 plus 4 times 5 says, I had an upsetting dream a few nights ago that my dog somehow got into the zebra enclosure at a zoo, and the zebras wounded him pretty badly. That is pretty scary, because zebras, I learned this a long time ago, but zebras kill tons of zookeepers because people underestimate them, and then they just will, like, bite a person and drag them until they're pretty sure they're dead. It's pretty fucked. I mean, for the people at least. I bet the zebra's like, I'm pretty dope. And then we've also got our sort of class consciousness theme for, I'd say, both chapters, because we talk about like the tenement building, and like they're always hanging out in like the docks and stuff, and they have like the loft is kind of the only nice place in the whole area they're in, and it's like secreted away. Um, and like the area of town Brian lives in is really nice, and we think about like where Taylor lives and a little bit about the origins of the city. There's tons of little morsels for us to chew up. That's always good. Yeah, so those were the main three I wanted to mention. And then kind of getting into 2 plus 4 times 5 says, yeah, zebras are massive jerks. Getting into the opening of the arc. 6.1, this is the third night since Bitch and Skitter took down Lung. Skitter is in the docks outside a tenement building, and that had been converted into barracks for the ABB. Since the info had come from Kaiser, Taylor had doubted it at first, but a ridiculous amount of ABB members had swarmed out of the building upon being attacked. After taking out all the guys with guns, the team moved on to beating up the rank and file, which Vic took to mean all the people being forced into the gang. That's the sort of morally dubious part of, like, I don't know, if they had a better strategy than just batter away at all of their conscripted forces until they're dealt with, then they might not have had to beat up so many innocent people. um, Greg says, the first guy brings a katana to a wasp fight. Bad move. Agreed. And yeah, getting into that part, Skitter wasp swarms a katana wielding, and this is where Vic's exaggerating, 6'10" Japanese man. No, it's just they said he's the same height as Gru, and she's got that like fixation with all the heights being wrong in the book. Um, she bonks him on the nose with her baton, hits him again, and he falls to the ground. Then Skitter goes all Breath of the Wild and swipes his katana. I've heard people bring up complaints about this theft before, where she's kind of stealing a cultural artifact. And it's kind of shady, I guess, but if she hadn't taken it, I think they honestly would have destroyed it, so it couldn't be used by the ABB again. So, kind of not great either way, but again, weird situation, like, the fact that they're being fully press ganged and like threaten their lives. They're like hostage and what, I don't even know what you'd call it. The person who the hostage is being used against. They're both things at once. Looking around the tenement, we see tall fires and patches of Gru's darkness, which is what we've got depicted here in the image. And then, I mean, I think this art is great, by the way. You can see Spitfire standing in the, like, right behind a fire, I guess. I was going to say in the shadow of the fire, but it's like the opposite of that. The light shadow of her own flames. It's pretty cool. I really like the color palette for this arc so far. I'm really happy to have more oranges. Big orange fan myself. And then, yeah, and I always like that darkness effect, like the pure black tendrils that she does with Gru's darkness. So, anyway, Taylor notes how scary they must look to the ABB members with masks like hers, Gru's, and Spitfire's, and Gregor's doughy face, which Vic couldn't get over him being described as doughy. Talked about it like a bunch of times over the course of the last week. And then pulled this clip out here and cut it off mid-sentence. I headed toward where the fighting was mainly happening. Came face to face with a 20-something man. I immediately pegged him. And then she blacked out the rest of the line. Redacted it. Skitter approaches her next victim and commands him to surrender. When he says he can't, she tries to convince him, bragging about how good she is at fighting. Skitter thinks to herself that she's not enjoying fighting these guys. But what choice does she have? She sicks her bugs on the man, but he charges her, flailing a bat. Luckily, Gru steps in and performs his signature punch in the face move. It's a good technique, the punch in the face. Tattletale tells the gang that the building is clear. Skitter thinks about how they had been outnumbered 20-1. A team of capes can take down a ridiculous number of unpowered people, even if they have weapons. Spitfire and Gregor work together to safely burn down the building, while Skitter and Gru disarm and cuff the injured, unconscious ABB members. Spitfire and Gregor are actually like a really good natural team, because Spitfire being not immune to fire, as well as like fire being dangerous to like continue burning and stuff, he can mitigate a lot of the risk to do with that by being able to spray his foam and stuff. It's pretty cool. 2 + 4 × 5 says safely burn down the building. Now that's an oxymoron. Yeah. Gru and Skitter make small talk as they work. Gru confirmed that Kaiser's underling Fog, with Kaiser's underling Fog, that the dogfighting issue won't be pressed. And then this is a quote from the book. Gru wrestled with a gang member. Gru wrestled with a gang member with an injured leg, twisting the guy's arms behind his back, then punching him in the kidney when his struggling made it too difficult to get the plastic handcuffs on. The guy gave up the fight. You got any plans for tomorrow? I turned my attention away from the unconscious girl I was cuffing and looked at Gru. Well, he asked. I'm planless. No plan, I fumbled my words. This is a lie. Taylor's supposed to be going back to school. But what's the harm in skipping a couple more days? Gru invites Skitter over to his place, and he wants help putting together some furniture in preparation for his sister's caseworker checking out the apartment. Skitter agrees and imagines his boyish smile behind his helmet. Gru awkwardly claps her on the shoulder. There's a typo here. She wrote on the soldier. Claps her on the shoulder and heads off to tackle some dude trying to crawl away. Yeah, it's really funny. He's just so bad at this interaction in some ways. He's just like, yup, shoulder pat. Tattletale joins Skitter to grin at her. Skitter tells her that she's reading too much into this. But Tattletale notes that he hadn't invited her over. The building crashes down and Gregor extinguishes the flames. The crew scrams and parting ways with Gregor and Spitfire. As they flee the scene, Gru driving, Taylor wonders if the ABB is just falling apart or if she's getting any better, more comfortable with this. Gru voices that the ABB is pretty much done for, and Tattletale pushes her agenda to Taylor, saying that the whole cops and robbers thing she talked about is like in full effect here. The villains made a truce and are working in tandem with the cops and the capes and the military to sort of protect the status quo, and they do the daytime work while the villains do the actual fighting of the majority of the gang. In many ways, I think Tattletale is right. Like, they all have a vested interest in getting things back on track between, the hero and villain sides. But, it's hard to say, because the cops still, the hero capes in particular still probably would like to arrest all the undersiders, all the travelers, etc., etc. Yeah. Taylor says that this has been a learning experience, and she's gotten to know the members of Fault Line's crew and the travelers. And she seems to really like both, well, I mean, not the travelers per se, but she seems to really like Fault Line's crew, and she's, interested in the travelers because they're really strong in terms of powers and stuff. And I think she kind of liked Sundancer, but then Sundancer, of course, was like, oh my god, this person, what is wrong with her? Then Tattletale says, I learned a lot too, in a different way. She says that Trickster is the traveler's leader and he's a teleporter. He can swap any two items with about the same mass. Tattletale and Gru think that, Gru thinks that this restriction sucks, but Tattletale says that he makes it work, and Vic says that she thinks it rules and is perfect for him, which I pretty much agree. Like his power, wow. It's just exactly his shitty personality. He's just like, whoop, swoop. Just, I don't know. Trickster's great. I love him. 2 + 4 × 5 says, there's a character in the anime Jujutsu Kaisen that has a similar power. Interesting. Vale says, lol, never bring a katana to a wasp fight. Yeah. Yeah. Greg is right. And then, let's see here. So, the gorilla thing that we had seen in the past at the Summers Rock is actually a remote-controlled projection, and the cape's name is Genesis. And even if her projections get murked, she can send in a new one in a matter of minutes. The the description in this case by Tattletale is really cool. It's that there's like a cyborg Triceratops was the first form that arrived with Trickster. They go in, and when they find the ABB headquarters that they're attacking, or not headquarters, but area, then they just charge in Genesis first, and Genesis gets completely exploded by Bakuda bombs or whatever, and then Trickster's just laughing, and Genesis comes back as a armor-clad knight, and just goes around fighting the people with guns because, I mean, let's be real, the projection probably didn't even have a meaty, gooey core to shoot in the first place. Let's see here. 2 plus 4 times 5 said Trickster's personality is completely different from that anime character, but they both use their power intelligently. Vale says Genesis would be a super YA author. Yeah. And then Taylor says that she had learned. Well, I think it's Taylor. Ballistic can touch something and send it, as Vic put here, bulleting. Anything any size, pretty much, a car, a trash can, a handful of rocks, whatever thing he can touch, he can impart it with momentum to fire off at deadly speeds. So, I don't know, pretty good power. And then Taylor also had shared with the group previously about Sundancer's power. The ultra deadly sun power that glasses the pavement like it's nothing. Gru reminds them that they don't even know why the travelers are here or helping them with this, and Tattletale's like, "Why do you think I would know?" Which of course we would think she would know. Taylor asks if she can stay the night at the loft, and Tattletale reminds her that it's her place too. No need to ask. She puts her mask back on as she's stepping out of the car to call her dad. But when she says that she's going to stay the night at Lisa's again, Danny says no. He says that he hasn't seen her since the school meeting. He believes her when she says she's doing okay, but he needs more assurance than that. And he's worried that they're going to lose touch like they did when Taylor's mom died. Taylor says that she'll come home for dinner tomorrow. And then she sort of lies about how long she's been skipping school as well. Yeah, the lie passed through my lips easily, but it sat heavy on my conscience. Disappointing him would have felt worse, though. She's just a ball of negative emotions about her relationship with her dad. Taylor joins back with the gang, opens a hatch at the base of the grocery store, leading into a tunnel underneath a barricade. The actual wording of the last few lines of the chapter here I thought were really great. And so it's Tattletale here. All set? She asked. Ready, I answered. She opened the hatch at the base of the grocery store that would lead us into the tunnels that stretched beneath the barricade. We descended into the darkness. Pretty good early chapter end, I would say. I feel like I really start to notice it more as the book goes on, and then tons in Ward, but Wildbow has really good opening and ending lines of chapters. Some of them are just wild, just great. Greg says, Taylor and Danny were this close to being at a good spot after she got a concussion. Then bam, right back into falling apart. Yeah, exactly. And the bam sort of coincided with the bam of punching him. You know, as things go. Let's see here. Final chapter thoughts. I think this is a really good arc open. It's starting to signal that the events from last arc are all like coming to a close. I mean, obviously the exact events came to a close last arc, but like the overall conflict of the ABB is coming to a close. And then it also, I don't know, it really it I do think Taylor has come a long way in terms of her strength as a cape already. The way they took down this group was just like it's nothing. Like she can fight normal humans, like just like loads of them. Doesn't even care. Um, and she can work with a group of capes that she's never like been with before, with like these different mixed groups. Um, and it also shows us as an audience how far the um I guess the fighting has come. I think it's much better written now in terms of like it was very casual to have that fight go through. It it didn't seem like hmm, like I don't know, just we didn't need to focus on every little detail and stuff, and there were like neat things happening, and it sort of breezes past some things and highlights others in a way that feels like Wildbow really knows what he wants to be going for now. Whereas I felt like some of the previous things were a little clunky, like the Bakuda fight. I always think of as like they're just going disaster to disaster to disaster, and it's a little rushed feeling. But stuff like this is just like perfect pacing, dialogue during fights. Like, she's just so casual about everything too. It makes it really fun. Um, anyway, I'll stop gushing over how great this chapter is. Um, Taylor even gets a "you're 100 years too early to be facing me" style speech, says Greg. It's true. It's true. Um, Vale says, I still wish after many rereads that Taylor had just talked to her dad. Yeah, yeah. But, we'll never get to see that Taylor, who just talked to her dad. I think I'm gonna continue on to, 6-2 here. Taylor is super enjoying completely neglecting her relationship with her dad. It's right off the bat. That's what Vic says. She's been keeping up her running schedule, which means she has 2 to 3 hours before the others wake up where she's on her own. Taylor starts her day curled up on the couch, checking the news and the Parahumans websites on one of Lisa's laptops. So she's obviously got a lot of spare computers, which is probably good. Good for Taylor, at least. Today's headline is Villains Step In! A picture of the building they burned down with the ABB members strewn about. Taylor's silhouette is obscured by bugs, which she notes is funny as she hardly notices them. But I imagine she's just surrounded by swarms and swarms of little flying guys, you know? Taylor feels a bit uncomfortable reading the article, so she just skims it and surmises that the heroes were going to make their final pounce at the ABB today. Let us do the dirty work and then clean up. Whatever. Yes, Taylor, because cleaning up is notoriously the fun part. Keeps skimming the article and notices the 12-year-old girl who went missing 2 weeks ago, the day of the bank robbery, is now presumed dead. Who cares about that? What's this censored image in the sidebar? And then get the next speed draw. So, an image of Lung in human form is there, with his eyes popped right out. It's censored, so they censor over the popped out eyes. But we know they're popped out. I think we all know. And there's a caption beneath it, decisive blow. Brockton Bay authorities have turned a blind eye to local villains enforcing their own brand of justice. Oh man, was I digging myself in deeper and deeper? I think it's funny that the Brockton Bay's paper put in a pun, turning a blind eye toward the local villains while they're displaying an image of a blind villain. Come on, guys. What a pun. Oh my god, 2 plus 4 times 5 is saying the exact same crap. Oh man. Another image reveals Lung had gotten away. Taylor's disappointed. She even says it's massively disappointing. It's massive. We need a headlines question. A headlines question. Could be interesting. Lisa greets Taylor. Taylor mentions that she did the breakfast and coffee run today. Aww. Brian texts Taylor, and he's done early with whatever he was doing, his class stuff, the check-in. And does Taylor want to head over? So Taylor says yes, and then she rushes into a shower and finally gets a good temperature. And then it abruptly turns from hot water and ices her. Love the loft, did not love the water heater, she thinks. She sets it to the highest setting to get some lukewarm water and washes her hair. She's super cold out of the shower and doubles up on towels. We're reminded here that she's like rail thin and doesn't retain heat well. Let's see here. Taylor notices that she only has 6 minutes to pick an outfit, and Lisa roasts Taylor as she's walking by. It's so very you, how you use perfect punctuation and capitalization for your texts. Lisa grinned as I headed for my room. She was walking out of the kitchen, holding my cell phone. I grabbed the phone from her, rolling my eyes, and headed toward my room. She followed me and let herself in. We get some... Greg says, I bet Taylor could have her bugs lug around cameras. Then Taylor could get a job selling the photos to a local paper. Her boss would rail against the excesses of Skitter. And then Vale said, come up with a Brockton Bay approved headline for a chapter. Yeah, interesting. Greg says, teenager priorities, spent money on the TV, forgot the water heater. Yeah, you really think with all the money they have, they could get that done. But we need some sort of... I think that it may be the audience's job to come up with a fake sort of J. Jonah Jameson for this setting, to yell about how they want pictures of Skitter. I mean, we could make a joke that it's Stan Vickery, but we all know that Stan Vickery is much more cool-headed than a J. Jonah Jameson type. So, where were we? We got, Lisa starts to ask Taylor if she's going to start going out with Brian, and Taylor tries to dodge the question. She examines this present that Brian had gotten for Taylor, and then she's trying to get Taylor to admit that she's into Brian while she's over staring at the gift. Taylor keeps getting ready and asks Lisa if this is her power at work. Lisa counters that Brutus is probably aware that you're attracted to Brian. And Taylor fumbles for a second, like, yeah, well, he's like hot and whatever, but like everyone thinks that. You think that, right? Lisa concedes that he is indeed hot, but she sort of dances around the topic of being ace, which, spoilies, is confirmed by Lisa herself in Ward. And you don't see that many asexual characters in media, but they did get a great pull with this one, with our problematic fave, Tattletale. Taylor doesn't really pick up what Lisa is putting down and responds with, "Sorry to hear," thinking that Lisa's power is a barrier between her and her sexuality. Taylor keeps getting ready as quick as she can and feels bad that she doesn't have time to properly address her friend's feelings, etc. But she's scrambling to be ready in time for the bus as it is. Lisa goes on to say that she and Brian wouldn't work as a couple and they'd want to kill each other, but she thinks that Taylor and Brian would actually make a good couple as opposed to them. So she's not being subtle about it. She's going full ham, like, you should go out with Brian. And once again, Taylor asks if this is the powers talking or not. If she has she's like, do I have confirmation from superpowers that Brian is actually into me? Lisa explains that it drains her way more to read people than, like, non-biological stuff, so she's not spending her mental resources here. After Lisa essentially tells Taylor she might have to make the first move or Brian won't think about his own feelings, Taylor tries to, like, spin move out of admitting that she has feelings once again. Lisa says Taylor's spending a lot of time picking out an outfit for someone who doesn't care about, and Taylor's able to use the easy excuse that she's always like that, so this isn't actually any different from normal. I'm not being weird, Lisa, you're being weird. And Lisa works out a way to deal with, Lisa works out a deal with Taylor real quick while she's picking her clothes. Lisa picks out the outfit and points out why it's a good idea. She says, Brian's a guy who appreciates being practical. That's something he likes about you, and he's said as much. And even though I think it's fucking fantastic that you're going to step further to look nice, you can do that in clothes that make sense for doing light labor. Jeans, yes. Skirt, not so much. She says all this while cleaning up after Taylor and putting away the clothes that Taylor had been looking at before. Lisa also has Taylor wear a crop top to show off her stomach and makes her promise that if she wears a jacket, she'll take it off. Lisa ushers Taylor out of the loft, telling her to enjoy herself, and Taylor manages to keep from zipping up the outer layer that she's put on, showing her stomach like she was worried to do. She's really doing her best to work with Lisa on breaking out of her shell. She does, however, think of how terrible an idea it is to go out with Brian. She lays down a mental timeline that she only plans to be with the Undersiders for 2 to 4 more weeks to try to figure out who the boss is. She thinks about a relationship broken off in that way would be salt in the wound for everyone involved. As though, betraying them and turning them into the PRT wouldn't already be, Vale says, it might be interesting to look at the times Tattletale and Taylor are alone together. It seems like Tattletale is always focused on her clothes. Yeah, I think that's true early on. She kind of... Yeah, I'll have to think about it, but I think she sort of changes focus later. Because she's, like, always working on Taylor, Taylor is an old classic car, and Tattletale's just trying to fix her up, make her just perfect. Compartmentalizing away her thoughts, she justifies that she shouldn't think about it too much, or it'll tip off Lisa. Yeah, that's why, Taylor. Don't worry, we all believe you. She even has her own snarky mental response, like what I just said, and acknowledges just for a moment that she was feeling increasingly lousy and ambivalent over the idea of turning friends into the authorities. Yeah. At this point, she stops thinking about this, and the next paragraph is immediately about how she's running to the bus stop. She hesitates for a moment, thinking that she doesn't want to get sweaty. Then she sees that she actually is about to miss the bus and runs a second time. Uh, while she's riding, she thinks about the city, how this bus route is a perfect example of why Danny tries so hard to get the ferry running again. She has to take a bus west, a second bus south, and then walk east just to get to where she's going. And now that she's in East Downtown, it's actually a nice part of town, and she's passing the offices and stores, and Brian lives in an actual like nice neighborhood of apartments and condos. There's still a bit of gang graffiti here from the Empire 88, as this is still near the main section of their territory. But overall, this is definitely a step up from Taylor's area of the city, where the houses and buildings all have problems. She even thinks she thinks if you fixed it, something else would inevitably break down. So you got used to stuff like the broken step. Learn to skip it up to the second one. Or you entered and left through the back door at the kitchen, like I did. She's just like, yeah, you learn to live with the bullshit, basically. Thinking a bit about the origins of the city as an early trading post in colonized America, she notes the differences between the new and old refurbished buildings, saying that it was as though a city planner had intended for it to be jarring. Things were nice, but they didn't really fit together. And just gonna take a moment here. Arriving at Brian's modern apartment, Taylor sees him resting against the wall near a potted tree, and the front door to the building. She notes his outfit: a steel blue T-shirt, dark jeans, and scuffed boots. Brian had combed out his cornrows, and he's got his hair in a long, loose ponytail that poofs out below the hair ties. He seems so at peace that Taylor thinks he might be asleep. She thinks about how she wouldn't let her guard down in any open urban area like he's doing now, and thinks about how he's a big guy that people normally wouldn't want to mess with. But in this area of town, with the Empire 88 being here and him being black, etc., that it may still be a dangerous idea. But, he doesn't care. Also, he could probably hear people walking up to him and stuff. He's a pretty alert guy. Sorry to wake you, she says, and then he smiles, and it's that smile that Taylor loves so much. And before he even opens his eyes, I wasn't sleeping. He was waiting outside until she had gotten there, so that she wouldn't be stuck waiting for him if he was moving things upstairs, when she arrived. They get a few more things from the car, and he explains it's a rental car and talks about a couple reasons that it would be bad to actually own one. He'd get tracked, it would get stolen, etc. I smiled at the word hideout. I get it. Car bad. I kicked myself. Why did I keep lapsing into caveman speak around him? He took it in stride, though. Car bad. Expensive. Brian says he'll get the stuff while Taylor closes and locks the doors after him, then opens the building door. At this point, she, checks him out for a long couple of seconds, and he's picking up the boxes, and I can only imagine her being, the least subtle person in the world, and just, gawking at him. Then finally she remembers she needs to respond to what he said. I said, reminding myself he'd ask me a question. Sure, I'll get the doors. Damn it, Lisa. What did you get me thinking about? As if she was not already thinking it. So yeah, another good chapter. I think it's really, really great at establishing the sort of relationship dynamics that are currently at play between Taylor and Lisa, and then between Taylor and Brian. I mean, obviously we'll see much more of the Taylor and Brian stuff over the next few chapters, but I think this is a great lead into it. It's like a lot of people say, the fights in this, they're great, the setting amazing, the powers, love it, but I'm here for the characters. I really really love scenes like this, where she's just like a total awkward idiot. It's great. Um, and then let me think. Oh, and these are both sort of longer chapters. It's sort of not longer than we've seen, but they're almost 20 minutes long each in the audio, and it's just sort of showing that the average chapter length is going to keep getting longer. There will be a few more short ones, but they're ramping up, and they will continue to throughout the entire length of the story. I don't know, chat. You got any chapter thoughts about 6.1 or 6.2? I've got some stuff to talk about in the characters and powers knowledge section, but this episode's been a bit light since I'm alone. Vale says, come to think of it, turning in my best friend and love interest to the cops might not be the best idea. They are nice and relaxing chapters. Yeah, agreed. Well, I guess I'll move on to the characters section. The main things are Lisa and Brian in this. Lisa, of course, very intrusive into Taylor's personal space and like privacy, but in a way, she's doing it in a way that gets past Taylor's guard. She's very good at what she does, and I don't know. I think she's really helping Taylor out with getting her to open up and stuff. But Lisa's mischievous. She won't just read your texts. She'll let you know that she's read all your texts. And then Vale says, Tattletale is her mom here. She's doing all the mom things, but talking like a friend. Yeah. I've certainly had some mom friends. Yeah, I think their dynamic is really interesting. And as sort of heavy-handed as she is sometimes, it's clear that Lisa really cares about Taylor. Even the parental version of the boyfriend joking, says Vale. Yeah, it's true. And like pushing her to pursue that and stuff. In a way that like a parent would. Not that I have a parent who's done that, but I've seen others do it. Vale, like a BFF, would want to talk back and forth, but Tattletale jokes with her like a parent. Yeah. I agree. Danny does the same eyebrow waggle sentence. Oh my god. Let's see here. I don't think I have a lot more to say on Lisa. She's only 2 + 4 × 5. OMG, Telltale is Danny confirmed. Yes, exactly. I've never seen Tattletale. Yes, it's true, says Vale. No. They interact in wildly different ways. Lisa is willing to make bold moves, and Danny is not. Danny is like very small c conservative when he's trying to like help out Taylor. He's very afraid of overstepping her boundaries or off-putting her. So he's very careful about that stuff. Greg says, we've cracked the case, boys. Yeah, it's true. Tattletale is Danny. Confirmed. The TT on her costume is Old Gaelic iconography for Ganhiel. An obvious clue. Yeah. It's exactly right. This is the new This is the new thing that all of you guys are gonna need to make fan art for the other art section. Oh, by the way, I kind of wanted the other art section on the Discord to be for stuff that we kind of make in the community, and maybe I'll make a separate like Parahumans memes section for like stuff that's uh from like outside sources essentially. But I think if anyone, if any of our people make art, feel free to post it on that other art section. I just don't want to claim any. No, it's okay, Val. I don't want to claim any ownership over anything anybody does, and I kind of feel like it's fun to keep all our stuff in like a pile. Yeah, it was cute. It was funny. It was just the like, you don't have money to go shopping. We're gonna rob a bank thing. Yeah. Um, but it'll be our inaugural meme on the memes channel, Vale. That's how we'll do it. Um. All right, so moving on from Lisa, I could talk about Lisa all day. I could come up with reasons to talk about her for 100 years, but there's not actually that much that she has. I guess I didn't mention how cute it is. Her little interactions with Taylor in 6.1 are, she's like totally apart from the fight. Then she comes over just to like, not to get under Taylor's skin, but adjacent to that. Vale says, pericardium is awesome. I'm assuming that is the meme creator. The vaunted meme creators. But then Brian. So yes, moving on to Brian. He's pretty casual with the way that he invites over Taylor. I think this might be one of those things where like he doesn't know that he's into her, but he's into her, so he's asking her to come over without really like thinking about why or whatever. I feel like he doesn't examine his own feelings that much at this point in the story. Kind of just tries to think about other stuff. Vale just says Brian likes her. Yeah. I mean, sure. Yes, I agree with you, but I do think that there's a layer of like self obfuscation. Uh, I don't think that he is like fully mentally there with like, I want to go out with Taylor. Like that's not his mindset. It's like, Taylor's pretty cool, I guess. We should hang out. Just a little I guess it feels different in nature to me. Um he's not like pining over her. And he's also not flustered by her. He's very cash. And we get to see his practical side. He's a bit whimsical with the like resting against the side of the building, but he's very practical, like with the wrist cuffs, with the rental car, and he rented a station wagon so that it would have room for the moving stuff. Very practical. And then Tattletale, even Lisa, I should say, points out that he is practical person and that Taylor should consider this when she's considering her outfit. She gives Taylor a lot of good tips. If he didn't, Tattletale would have been like, Taylor, I really need you to go shopping with me for hot pants, because she'd know. Oh, man. But yeah, I feel like we learn a lot about Brian in a way, but we've already gone over most of it. Also, Brian doesn't like to leave loose ends. He confirmed with Fogg, one of the Empire 88 people, that the dogfighting thing is tabled, at least for now. So it's good to see their personalities come out in their interactions. It's like so obvious sometimes that it feels like, well, of course they're gonna do that, but like I don't know, just a lot of stuff I've read doesn't have characters that are written that well, so I just think most things are written poorly. I think I'm a bit judgy about media. Um, so yeah, I think that's it for the characters for now. Vale says he's watching all the details. It's nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, and we get to learn about Brian's sinewy muscles and about how he's not a guy who has to work out. He's just like, you know, he's not a guy who works out for show muscles. He just he's fit. He's fit. Don't worry about it, bro. Um. Oh, Vale says Wildbow spoiled me so much. I can hear every bad sentence in other books now when I read. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like how, and I know that there are a lot of My Hero Academia fans, and I may even have some in this small crowd of three. But I watched My Hero Academia directly after finishing Worm, and it was possibly the worst possible transition into that show. Maybe it would have been even worse if I had just completed Ward, but I was like craving more superhero material, and then I just get Academia, and I'm just like, this is really bad. Um, Greg had warned me not to anger the My Hero Academia community, but I think if I do so, that will have meant that someone listened to this, so I will have already been winning. Uh, 2 + 4 × 5 says I could only get through 2.5 episodes. I think that's literally exactly how much I got through as well. Maybe 3. He did like this test thing, and then they like were judging the test, and they're like, "You get 0 points because the giant thing that's unkillable is worth 0 points." And it's like, what? What are you talking about? What universe are you living in? um, yeah, every moment to moment I was like bothered by the setting, the actual like things happening, the characters. I'm a hater, I know. Um Vale says it was a gloomy dark day, storm clouds overhead, oppressive. Then a tiny crack in the clouds appeared, shooting a ray of glorious gold on the man who stood before me, Brian. First draft toned down. Yeah. Um All right, moving on, like I said before, from the characters to the powers, knowledge, and world building. I had pulled out a little thing here when Taylor mentioned in her internal monologue that they had already taken out the guys with guns. I had imagined different strategies that their group could have used to do this in a fairly safe manner. And the favorite one that I came up with was that Gru would like darken the whole area, then point out to Gregor where he should spray his like fire hose of foam, and they just like knock all the guns out of the thugs' hands, which they wouldn't be able to like find in the darkness. Then he'd just do his normal thing, move about, and just baseball bat, over and over again. And it's like not even hard to think of. It's just like it almost didn't matter how many of these guys were. They were so outclassed by like even a small group of capes. Um, and the way that they describe Gregor's foam at one point reminded me of containment foam, which we haven't seen yet, but which will be seen for the first time in this arc. And to pull out the quote, Gregor sprayed his extinguishing foam with one hand, directing the stream against the fingers of his other hand so the stream separated into a broad spray. Where each of the droplets hit a part of the building, they swelled into a blob of foam a few feet across. Pretty cool. Vale says some raiders hold up really well to Wildbow, like the good Stephen King stories, Wheel of Time, Dresden Files, and the like. As much as I love them, the writing is not even as close to as good. Oh, by the way, the delineation, I read that sort of as one sentence by accident. The delineation is the Stephen King stories, the good ones, are on the hold up end, and the Wheel of Time and Dresden Files are on the not so hold up. 2 plus 4 times 5 says, OMG, Gregor, make containment foam. And it pretty much seems like it. I think containment foam is like super durable. I think that's like one of the main differences, but the fact that his foam can like extinguish flames is still like kind of awesome, really amazing. Like I had said earlier about how his power in tandem with Spitfires is just great. Like her power by itself is really dangerous for her to use, not only for herself, but she doesn't want to do collateral damage because that's not really like her bag, you know. She's fun and profit style villain. Um, so yeah, she found someone who could like really like help her cape wise, pretty good. And maybe that indicates, well, they're both. So he's a cauldron cape, so maybe his personality is less affected by it, but maybe it indicates some sort of like balancing where that they could do as friends, where they would be socially good for each other in some ways. I feel like a lot of cape relationships we're sort of supposed to take that from it. Like if they have really synergistic powers, it's because either they're really like good for each other or they feed into the worst tendencies of each other. But yeah. Vale says the Wheel of Time did bring the Ail, which is one of the coolest societies ever. I'm just gonna imagine that that's how you say it, because I know I'm not gonna pronounce it right. And then Vale says too many vowels. Uh, 2 plus 4 times 5. Maybe Gregor could make different foams that each have the individual properties of containment foam, but I don't know if he could combine all those attributes together at once. I agree. Um, but it was really interesting. I think the way he uses his power, and I think imagine you could be Gregor without the physical changes. I think that his power would be pretty sick to have. Actually, just I don't know. I think it's interesting. Um, but his changed body is useful for many things, like the fact that he's so dense and yet takes impacts really well, like the fact that he got hit by a car and it didn't hardly phase him. Uh, okay, so Greg says that it's pronounced sort of like I-eel. And then 2 plus 4 times 5 snarks, who would want an eel in their eye? Uh, so we sort of review the traveler's powers. We like learn for the first time a couple of the powers, and then we review Sundancer as well. So we run down the list this chapter. Uh, Trickster, teleporter with a twist, great power. We all love it. Making people whack each other. Um, it's delightful. Then you've got Sundancer, obviously powerful sun orb, ridiculously off the charts, hot. Ballistic, I mean, his power also just like destructive powerhouse. He's great in terms of like stuff, but much like Sundancer, he has to hold back most of the time because otherwise he'd just like explode people. And then Genesis, I think one of the best powers in the series in terms of like what power would you want to have. I think it's fairly like I'm sure some people wouldn't want to have Genesis's power, but I think it's almost universal. People being like, "Yes, I would love to have that power." Um, it's dope. The projections, and she can sort of tailor make them to a certain extent. Um, yeah, it's good stuff. And the variability in the forms we've seen so far, like we've only heard of 3 forms so far, but like a 4-armed gorilla, like a cyborg Tyrannosaurus Rex, and like a lady knight in armor. Pretty cool. Um, and we don't know why the travelers are in town, or like what their overall goals are. We've only actually talked to Sundancer on screen. Oh, and we saw Trickster in the Somers Rock meeting. He was very he was engaging to the room. Very charming. Fault Line's crew, we get sort of another rundown on them, and Taylor specifically notes liking them, and having that be like an interesting part of doing this whole thing. So we saw from Gregor's perspective, and now we actually see his power, because during his chapter he talks about the like physical changes that he got, but he never talks about what his power actually does. I don't think during the entire chapter. And his power is pretty dope. Generates different concoctions in his stomach and then fires it out through his skin. Fire hose hands. And then you got Spitfire. I don't really know how her power works. I can't remember like what it's like when she starts out flames. I kind of think she spits out a flame, but like the more I think about it, I'm like, do they ever actually say that? She might not ever actually spit the flames. I'd have to look into it. Neuter, great guy, he rules. Oh, we didn't talk about it last chapter, not last chapter, but last week on 5.x, but we learned what Fault Line's power does as well. Having, being able to cut non-living material. Even if it was, like dead wood she can cut, but she can't cut something that's still got like life in the cells, basically. It's a weird delineation. Hard to say what would cut off, like when it would enact, but powers are weird. Yeah, I don't know. Fault Line's crew, they're great. I love them. Sadly, we won't see them like all the time anymore. I feel like this was one of the densest sections where we get to see them a lot. But we'll get to see him several more times throughout the story. And then I think we're done with the setting. Oh, the other thing about the setting, the powers, knowledge, and world building, the world building aspect, they just really go over the Brockton Bay stuff again, and like the stellar squalor dynamic, the like poorness of the city, the poor infrastructure, the intentional like divide where they don't want poorer people to be able to get to the nice areas of the city without taking like the multi-bus strategy. So that's pretty cool. But I think we're gonna get on to the audience participation question that Vic had asked us. What do you think of the tone of 6.1? I'm gonna jump on to the audience participation thing. I think we only have the one answer from Vale. The relaxed slice of life feel to the start is an intentional shift in tone, leads into a more relaxed few chapters of character and world building, gives the clear impression that parahumans versus humans is not even a slight concern, and puts the reader in a more relaxed state to try to emulate the Undersiders, what the Undersiders are feeling. There's a sense of relief in the tone that I think is completely intentional. One of Wildbow's best traits as a writer is how he can not only set a scene, but also put an engaged reader in the same mindset as the point of view character. Yeah, a very sedate pair of chapters. The main reason, and we didn't want to leading question this too much, but the main reason Vic had asked this question is because of the way that the chapter, like 6.1 in particular, kind of leans into like goofiness while Taylor is like physically beating like gang members, air quotes, who are very much like just people who are forced to fight. So it's like there's a comedy tone, but she's also doing the bad thing. You know what I mean? So I think that's what Vic was getting at. And I know that she thinks it's like a really strangely toned chapter. I think it kind of works. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it, even though I've thought about it a lot. Sometimes I just like think and think and think, and I just still am up in the air on how I am perceiving stuff. But yeah. So I guess that's it for the rest of the audience participation stuff. Let's see here. And I guess the audience participation question for next week is, do you think the Undersiders should do the proposed job? Which I'm writing down now because I didn't have it actually typed out. All right, and then I'm posting that in the thing now, so I don't forget until next weekend, like I do sometimes. I don't have too much more to say. It's a super short stream. I guess at this point, I did not remember to get a new music for the arc, so I'm gonna have to do that this week. I'll find some Coag music track that I think is good, and then we'll get that going. But we've got the way to support the original creator, Wildbow, is to go to his Patreon at patreon.com/Wildbow. The entire free work is available at parahumans.wordpress.org, and then we've got the full free audiobook at audioworm.rain-online.org. Is that right? I'm so stupid. I should just look at the link. I didn't copy paste it here. Yeah, audioworm.rain-online.org. There we go. And yes, thank you, Vale, for the have a great week. Thanks 2 + 4 × 5. And Greg says, first bit of most arcs are usually a bit slower paced, so when the action picks up, you get the contrast. Yep. And Greg also says later, so goodbye, all 3 of you. Have a nice week, and I'll see you guys next week with Quinn. We're going to do 6.3 and 6.4. Bye!